We're up in Hull visiting a friend of ours who's had a pretty tough time lately. Abbie, you're a bit beaten up and bruised, but you're on the mend. Tell us what happened.
So it's probably not actually that well documented because no one actually got much footage of it from a spectator point of view. But racing at the last round of W Series at COTA in America, and there are some quite large and high sausage curbs out on the track. And in race one, I made a tiny little mistake and basically ended up running wide, probably like 1/4 of a metre wider than what I usually would on a very slow corner. Ended up running just over one of the sausage curbs, but it actually almost kind of dragged me centrally to the other two sausage curbs that were there. And it basically launched me off one of them, but I landed on another, and that kind of impact, that compression, launched me into the air, and that compression also broke my back and basically gave me a T4 compression fracture of 50%, and put me in this lovely brace for 3 months. So yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to talk about the accident too much because I imagine it was quite traumatic, but did you know in that moment that you were hurt, or did it take a while for it all to, for you to feel what had happened?
No, do you know what? It wasn't even particularly traumatic. Like a lot of people, have said, "Oh, it sounds like a really scary crash." Even calling it a crash seems stupid. Like it,
Yeah.
It was just such a small or such an innocent mistake. I did know instantly that I'd broken my back, or at least I'd kind of severely hurt myself from the moment I kind of landed on that last sausage curb. I actually heard my back crunch. And I was trying to explain to my friends kind of what kind of a sound it is, and I can't explain it. It was such a horrible crunching sound, and the pain was just instant. And that was on the initial hit. So I'm then in the air in pain, thinking I've got to land again at some point. Like, I hope it's not going to do anything more. But thankfully, the kind of pain level was just at like 10 out of 10, and it just remained at 10 out of 10 when I landed. So I knew immediately something was wrong. I kind of thought it was going to be a broken back, but the pain was strange. It was like in between my shoulder blades, but it went all down my ribs, all kind of down into my lower back as well. And I couldn't quite work out whether maybe I'd like snapped my shoulder blades or something like that. I couldn't quite pinpoint where it was. But later on, I've kind of even worked out in my head. Obviously, if you break or change your back, your ribs are all attached to that vertebrae. So basically, your full rib cage moves as well. So that explains why my ribs were sore, and it hurt a lot to breathe.
Okay, and then you spent some time in the States in hospital, and did you do all your hospitaling in the States and then move over here, or have you been in hospital in the UK as well?
No, so initially was taken by air ambulance to a couple of hospitals actually. Went to one initially, and that was full, so they flew us to another one. And it was kind of more like an assessment, so I had a head-to-toe kind of CT scan, and that's when they found the fracture, and basically kept me in overnight just for pain medication more than anything, and for the neurosurgeon, spinal dude, to basically have a look and say, right, it is stable, thankfully, so I shouldn't need an operation. Just have to wear this brace for 3 months, basically, to try and make sure I heal as best I can and I don't injure it further. With it being a 50% fracture, it's quite unstable, and I've gone through the entire vertebrae. So any kind of forward movements or anything like that, because that's what caused it. It was landing kind of in a forward movement that will potentially make it worse, or could potentially, damage it further. So the whole point of this is to kind of keep my head as far back as it can go, so that all of my weight is on the back of the vertebrae as opposed to kind of centrally or the middle, because at the moment kind of my vertebrae is kind of squished at the front more.
Okay.
So if I have weight in the middle or towards the front, it will heal. I'll basically heal with a hunchback, and that's going to present further problems down the line. So it's uncomfortable, but it's a necessity. And in the next week, I've got another brace coming that's even more heavy duty.
Okay.
So this will be even higher, and lift my head even further back. So
what does a day in the life of Abbie Eaton look like right now? PlayStation, Xbox?
Nintendo, or whatever it
Nintendo?
is. Yeah, I've got a Nintendo Switch that I actually bought in the States because I was like, oh, this is going to be a long road. I need to buy something.
Yeah.
So I tend to my island a lot on Animal Crossing.
Nice.
It's going well.
Good.
And yeah, a lot of Netflix. Thankfully, obviously, we've just had the F1 in Mexico, and the next few weeks we've got a fair few F1 races, so that will be keeping me entertained as well. And just support from people, you know, it's so lovely. Lots of friends and family are all coming in and saying hello, giving me lots of chocolate. Like, I've got so much chocolate at the moment.
Whoops.
Yeah, you got more chocolate.
Well, we'll get to that in a bit.
But I need it. You know, since the accident, I've lost about 5 kilos in weight. Just purely like the meds make you feel ill, and yeah, you don't really want to eat when you're not really moving either. You don't really get hungry. But yeah, it's a day in the life is just trying to kind of maybe a walk into the garden. If my dad's working on the Holden in the garage, go and potter around, see what it's up to. But yeah, 20 minutes is my limit, and then I'm back horizontal again.
Okay, and I guess this accident, it shows how time and place can be so important.
Yeah.
Because you've had way bigger shunts than what happened, and yet here you are. So you had an especially big one, I'm right in saying, in Spa, in W Series.
Yeah.
So how do those accidents compare in terms of, I mean, you just walked out of the car in the Spa incident, didn't you?
It's just, I think Spa, obviously it looked spectacular. It was huge. It's the biggest crash I've ever been involved in. And funnily enough, before this year, I think the last time I crashed was like 2014. So like I don't make a habit of crashing often, but at Spa, I got away quite lightly because I think I was constantly moving, and you know, in crashes like that, it is spectacular to see, but there's always like the energy is dissipating. You know, wheels are being thrown off, and it's constantly on the go. Whereas the impact of the curb at Curta, it was just instant, like underneath, and you haven't. The cars are so stiff, you haven't got any give. Whereas when you crash, like say into a wall, or you crash into another car, you have extremities that are going to give and release some of that energy. But I know there was another kid that actually had the same injury as me, same situation, ran over a sausage curb. And this was on the Sunday morning after my crash on the Saturday. Same injuries, and he said that I think when he was looking on the data, it was about a 50G impact, and that's going through your spine.
Straight through your spine.
So it kind of just gives a little bit of perspective. If you look at Grosjean's crash into the barrier, that was 53G, and you know it just shows the forces that are at work.
Sausage curbs as a thing, what are they there to do? Are they just a deterrent, or are they to literally slow down cars, or what are they there for?
They are supposed to do both, I think. You know, they're a deterrent that if you run over them, potentially you could damage the car, but I don't think that's what they're trying to, that's not the deterrent's kind of want. I think the deterrent is that, like any speed bump or a launch pad or something, you know, it's supposed to lift weight off the wheels to prevent traction. So if you run out wide and the outside cars run over the sausage curb, that should lift the rear, so the other car that's doing it legit will have the drive, and the car that's gone over the sausage curb will lose out and lose time. But the sausage curbs now are getting so big, and the ones in Curta were just huge. And even on the track walk, we were like, wow, like that is dangerous. And we've seen it in the past, you know, sausage curbs have been around for like a long time now, and since they have been around, all they do is cause massive crashes. And you know, you look at the just recently there was another one at Monza, which has been kind of widely spread on the internet. Now I know the drivers probably were more to blame to be in that position, but like I've said previously, it doesn't matter how you get to the sausage curb, whether it's, you know, poor driving, a mistake, having to take evasive action, or, you know, worse, you've been knocked out, you've had a heart attack, and actually you're unconscious in the car and you end up going to the curb. All it is going to do is launch the car. For example, Sophia Flörsch in Macau, she had an incident before the corner, but she was basically sideways and hit a sausage curb, which launched her into, I think it was like a media kind of tent. Now, if that had been a grandstand, like potentially there could have been 15 fatalities there. Yeah. And I just think
How far does it have to go before,
you know, we've had several crashes where people have fractured their back. Thankfully, touch wood, no one has become paralysed, but it's such a fine line from, you know, with my 50%, if I'd have gone like 55%, potentially that could have had a different story. So, you know, does someone need to die before these curbs actually get properly looked at? Like, it shouldn't need to get to that level. Yeah. And, you know, I think my race weekend as an example, I injured myself on the Saturday. Nothing was done about those curbs. The Sunday, an F4 driver goes out and he does exactly the same thing and has broken his back in exactly the same place. Like, we need to like open our eyes here. And I think it is a tough job that the FIA have got to regulate track limits. It is the biggest pain in the arse, like, of any racing driver and racing official and championships life, because, you know, we are simple racing drivers. If there is a gain to be had and it's kind of on the you know, the cusp of, if I can carry like another 5k into this corner and just about keep it on track, then that's going to get me like 2 or 3 tenths further up. You're going to run the risk, and there needs to be something better in place that is viable to deter people from doing track limits. Not have a physical deterrent, maybe. You know, if you run track limits, even like 2 track limits, you have to do like a drive-through penalty or something. Yes, it will initially ruin the sport in terms of, you know, you might have, let's say, if, I don't know, Hamilton or whatever, you know, does it and has a drive-through, it will ruin the fun for the fans. But eventually, like, drivers will have to back off so they don't get these limits. But I think the sausage curbs are just too dangerous, and it doesn't, the penalty of a broken back or being paralysed or being killed or killing spectators, it doesn't balance. You know, the gain you're getting for like a tenth to be penalised with that is just not right.
And as you say, you're only half a metre out. So if you were faced with that again, you would probably go even wider. You'd go metres wide, so you'd go right around the sausage
just to
curbs.
bail out a bit.
So they're in this weird zone that, and I guess the good thing is that I have seen in the news that guys like Vettel are bringing this up, and I imagine there's been F1 drivers meetings where your crashes come up. But what do you see as the solution to this? What would you rather was in place rather than the sausage curbs?
Gravel is a simple alternative, but a lot of people say, you know, for certain cars it could roll them, which then presents another problem. Like, it's like you have one solution for one thing, but then it creates another problem. But ultimately, like as I mentioned with the Spa crash, if you roll, you're dissipating energy, but then also it takes a long time that if a car runs wide and comes back on and brings a bit of gravel, then that's going to delay things having to clear up. And I think it was kind of too costly in time. And this is a more simple option. It's just a tarmac the full thing. But, you know, even if you look at Spa, the fast corners there, or Hungary, turn 4, the actual curbs themselves, the exit curbs, are quite aggressive anyway. And I know turn 4 at Hungary, I ran out wide and I tried to kind of keep it, but almost kind of, I was straddling the normal curb, and that kind of hit me up a little bit like that. So actually, if you do run wide at corners like that, you have to bail out of it and you have to go onto the runoff, and immediately you're going to lose your lap. So I don't think it's necessary. If you make the exit curbs good enough, it's not necessary to put sausage curbs in. And equally, it's only necessary at tracks where there is a lot of runoff. You look at Zandvoort, for example, there isn't any runoff, so they didn't need sausage curbs and there wasn't an issue.
Is that just grass then?
That was just grass, grass or gravel.
Right.
You know, so it's tough, and I don't envy the FIA for trying to look at alternatives. Like, it's going to be a hard decision to try and do the right thing, but we need to learn and we need to grow and we need to look at alternatives. And in the UK, we have pressure pads, pressure sensors on the exit curbs that if you run out wide and you do track limits, a photo will be taken of the car, of the offending car, and a penalty will be given. Why not something like that?
Sure.
You know? But again, it's money to install on the circuits. When you've got a pack of like 20, 30 cars, like, that are all probably going to be doing track limits, it's difficult to kind of regulate and to, you know, there is human error that comes in when, you know, if there are a bunch of cars and there's a photograph taken and a human has to look at it and say, well, I think they're off, I can't really see them because they're hidden by this other car. Like, it's tough. And I don't know what the right answer is at the moment. But more work needs to be done to find that solution that doesn't break people's back.
Well, it's great to hear that you've had loads of really cool messages from people.
You get the usual jovial comment from Clarkson on Instagram, which is good. It it makes me giggle, and it's just, you can have a lot of kind of, oh my God, it looked awful, how is the crash? And he'll just say something like some witty, sarcastic comment, which it gets to my humour button.
And how are you looking at the future now? What's your plan in terms of recovery, getting back in a racing car, Grand Tour, all that sort of stuff?
I've kind of got to wait and see how it goes. In an ideal world, 2 months I'll be thereabouts, and then the last month will be rehab, but I'm fairly certain it's probably going to be a 3-month kind of recovery. I've just got to wait and see what drives get offered next year, and also just how my recovery goes. I mean, all last year I actually had 2 prolapse discs in my neck for the entire year, and that happened last December. So I couldn't really train properly, so I was kind of not physically as I usually am in car, which definitely hindered my results. I was 100% on the back foot all year, and I was hoping to get to end of Texas, and then I'll have 6 months where I can properly rehab myself. But in natural Abbie Eaton style, I've done this, so I've kind of put my recovery back further. So we'll see how it goes, see if I can kind of get myself to a good physical level again, and see what drives are on offer and what works on offer, and hopefully come back with a bang, not a literal bang into the wall or anything, but come back strong.
Before we leave, Abbie, we have got some gifts for you.
It's going to be chocolate. Yeah.
I know you've said you've got a lot of chocolate. You did tell me what your favourite biscuit is. So these are the caramel covered digestives.
Amazing.
But I know if I was in your position, I would get through that in an afternoon. So I bought you 4.
Oh my goodness.
So that should last at least a week.
You can come again, I'm not going to lie.
And then here's something additional. I have these back home.
Yeah.
37% chocolate.
Amazing.
So once you get sick of those, these will change your world.
So like Maryland on steroids.
Exactly. Packed full of chocolate.
Yeah.
And then I thought, biscuits are great, but sometimes you just want straight chocolate.
Actual chocolate.
So Oreo.
Oreo chocolate, yeah. It's like biscuit and chocolate together.
Exactly.
Nice.
And then the final thing, this is going to be an exchange. So I want something back for this.
Okay. I'm nervous.
Now, I imagine most people have brought flowers, but I always think flowers last a couple of days. So I've bought you a potted plant and a dinosaur.
Nice. Okay.
And in exchange for that, I want to make sure that we are filming you when you next get back in the car, be it a test, even a car on the road.
Yeah.
We want to be there for that first drive. So,
all right, sweet, deal. We need to think of a name.
yes.
Should we get
Everyone
the
in the
guys to name
comments, what should we call the potted dinosaur? Don't
Who
be
is
rude.
this? Sweet, well thank you. Thanks for coming. You can come again if you're going to bring all these biscuits as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, hopefully see you in 3 months on a track, not a road, a track.
Okay. Well, we wish you all the luck in the world, and yeah, happy recovery.
Cheers.